Shortly outside of the federal ICE facility, which has been at the center of all of the controversy. There it is now. We have seen much larger crowds of protesters out tonight than normal. Hundreds of people, we are told, out there right now.
And we've seen at least one person detained after a physical interaction with a federal officer. That officer fired pepper balls into the crowd. That's still a stark contrast from the picture that President Trump painted in a post on Truth Social this morning. He directed the Secretary of War to send troops to, quote, protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. And he authorized full force if necessary. Shortly after, Oregon's governor spoke to the president and rejected the idea.
In my conversations directly with President Trump and Secretary Noem, I have been abundantly clear with them that Portland and the state of Oregon believe in the rule of law, and we can manage our own local public safety needs.
So right now, we do know that the federal government has beefed up the presence of federal law enforcement officers in Portland, around the federal building downtown and the ICE facility. We are still waiting to see when any U.S. troops will be deployed, and the White House is not giving any details. Local leaders are urging any protesters to remain peaceful despite the threats, to avoid any direct conflicts with federal officers. And also the couple of hundred people who have marched there earlier this evening did do exactly that. So we'd like to go live now. We do have reporters there on the scene. Our Ezra Kaplan is out there outside of that facility. We also have another reporter there on the scene in Portland there.
Yeah, let's get to Ezra first. He's been tracking the activity outside of this ICE facility all night. Ezra, what's it look like down there?
Yeah, so we are currently right outside the ICE facility on South Macadam. Now, first and foremost, I think it's important to note, while there are probably about 100 protesters here, it's anything but a war zone. I'm going to have our photographer, Devin Askew, show a little bit of what we're working with down here. Now, like I said, there's about 100 folks out here. This is the area that the president said earlier today was under siege and under attack by Antifa and domestic terrorists. And the picture that he painted is a grim one, but it doesn't really match what we're seeing here today. If you take a look around, you can see people in costumes marching around. There's a lot of chanting. There's a lot of gathering. There's some flowers being put down. But what we're not seeing is any sort of attack on the facility or anything like that. Now, I want you to take a look at some footage that I shot just a couple of hours ago. That's when a man was detained by federal agents. So what you're going to be looking at is some video that I shot on my phone, and this is what kind of keeps happening down here. Whenever a vehicle needs to come in or out of the ICE facility, they open the gates and a whole bunch of armed federal officers come out, push the protesters back, and allow vehicles to either enter or exit the facility. Now, each time they do that, things get caught up a little bit. People get more energized. There was one instance, and this is the video that we're showing you, where a man was actually detained by those federal officers. They came out, and as they were coming out, kind of made a targeted grab of this man. They forcibly took him to the ground, dragged him back into the facility. Now, unfortunately, we don't know any details about who it was. I've asked around. We don't, unfortunately, know that information yet. We will work on finding that out and bring that to you. But as they were doing that, they also were using what's called pepper balls. So they use a paintball gun that has these little pellets that have more or less pepper spray inside of them, and they were firing that at the ground to try to disperse the crowd. Now, I have smelled it and tasted it before. I got a big whiff of it. It's one of the chemical weapons that have been used here on various occasions. The federal officers have repeatedly deployed tear gas, pepper balls, other things, flashbangs, as there have been protesters gathered here. Now, we should say that we've heard from even from PPB's assistant chief that they've seen ICE being the ones instigating a lot of the confrontations. And so what we've seen down here, just in my reporting, is that the protesters have been vocalizing. They've been having their voices heard, saying, voicing their opposition to the actions of ICE. But what we haven't seen is any acts of violence. That so far has really only come from the agents themselves. Now, another thing to note as we've been down here is that there has been an increase in that kind of militarization of this area. We've seen an addition of a Black Hawk helicopter. Let's see if we can actually get this on screen right now. So Devin's going to try to get a shot of this Black Hawk helicopter. But this is a new development. We haven't had these helicopters here before, and I can tell you that this helicopter doesn't have a transponder on. It most likely is part of DHS's or some other federal agency's aircraft fleet. Otherwise, it would have to have that transponder on. So we are aware of that's present, that aircraft's presence. We also know that there's been some drones flying around, and one of the things about that is that there's currently a temporary flight restriction in place on this area. So we can't fly a drone. Otherwise, we'd show you an aerial shot. The only ones who can fly a drone are the ones who ask for that temporary flight restriction in the first place, and that is DHS. So we're going to be out here for the rest of the evening. We're going to be bringing you any live updates that we have as we have them. But for now, I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio. Reporting in Southwest Portland, or in South Portland, Ezra Kaplan, Fox 12 Oregon.
Okay, quickly, Ezra, before we let you go, we can see the crowd, though, is much larger than it's been, in many previous nights before the president's authorization. Absolutely. Have you had a chance to talk to the people in the crowd about what they say their motivation? Is it because of the president's authorization, or is it because they wanted to show presence in front of the ICE facility?
Yeah, we've heard from a lot of folks here. I've talked to people who are new coming down here, who are kind of coming out in reaction to this elevated attention, this call from the president, this promise to send in more force. And they're coming down because they want to show support for the protesters, for the people who have been down here. The other group I've talked to are those protesters who have been down here day after day after day for well over 100 days now. They've been a near constant presence out here. And what they tell me is that, honestly, nothing's really changed. There hasn't been some big increase in violence. In fact, the last real flare-up that we saw was back in June. So what we're hearing from the folks here is that nothing's really changed. And the only thing that's really changing is the new posture from the federal government. And that's what we're going to be watching as the night progresses.
All right, Ezra, we appreciate your reporting tonight. We'll catch up with you in just a few minutes.
In the meantime, Governor Tina Kotek, Mayor Keith Wilson, and other Oregon leaders called out the president's actions at a joint press conference today. Their message: Portland does not need federal troops.
Governor Kotek says she spoke with the president this morning and made that message clear.
There is no insurrection. There is no threat to national security. And there is no need for military troops in our major city.
Oregon Governor Tina Kotek and other leaders pushing back against the Trump administration Saturday after an early morning social media post by the president saying he's directing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to, quote, provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and authorizing, quote, full force if necessary.
President Trump has directed all necessary troops to Portland, Oregon. The number of necessary troops is 0.
It comes after repeated threats from the Trump administration to crack down on what it calls attacks from Antifa and domestic terrorists.
We're going to get out there and we're going to do a pretty big number of those people in Portland that are doing that.
And after an increased federal presence in the city Friday, masked agents in armored vehicles and SUVs seen coming to and from federal buildings, movement that sparked some peaceful protests near Portland's ICE facility late Friday night. Governor Kotek saying Saturday that she spoke directly with President Trump and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem about the possible deployment and warned them that any deployment of troops in the city would be unlawful.
I was very clear with them. We disagree with the premise that we need federal troops here.
Kotek says she'll huddle with Attorney General Dan Rayfield now to discuss next steps and any potential legal action against the administration for deployment of troops. Though as of Saturday, it wasn't immediately clear where those troops would be coming from or when they may make it to the city. And another lawmaker who was at that press conference earlier today was Congresswoman Suzanne Bonamici. She's urging members of the community to conduct peaceful protest and sending their messages to the administration. And tonight, Bonamici sent her own. Take a listen.
This is a gross abuse of power by the president. He does not have the authority to send military troops to a city. There are so many things you could be doing to help Portland. You could let us hire back the federal employees you fired. You could send us the dollars that Congress appropriated for infrastructure, for housing, for education. Those are things that will help Portland. Sending military troops here will not.
Republican leaders have taken to social media today to applaud and justify President Trump's calls to send U.S. troops to defend federal facilities.
Attorney General Pam Bondi posted on X today that there will be zero tolerance for what she called domestic terrorism.
We've seen this before. We saw it in Portland and with the LA riots. These are not peaceful protests. These are coordinated attacks by radical extremists, and they end now. Anyone who threatens or assaults our federal officers will be arrested and charged federally, not in some liberal state court. Same goes for anyone who's funding and aiding these extremists. You will be dismantled brick by brick. We are taking our country back. Make America safe again.
Meantime, the U.S. Secretary of Labor and former Congresswoman for Oregon's 5th Congressional District, Lori Chavez DeRemer, posting on social media today saying, "I've seen firsthand how lawlessness has transformed Portland from a beautiful place to live to a crime-ridden war zone. Thank you at POTUS for taking action to keep our ICE facilities protected and make America safe again." Harsh descriptions like that of the Rose City have plenty of Portlanders talking tonight.
Fox 12's Michaela